Is it 0421 or is it 0451? Now I got to look up at the doc.
I don't know. Sorry.
0421.
It's way at the top. Okay.
All right. So,
part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
spoiler alert, when this podcast talks about the books of his Dark Materials, it does so in the context of the most recent book. And when it talks about the television show on the BBC and HBO, it does so in the context of the most recent episode. You've been warned.
You're listening to The Dust, a His Dark Materials podcast.
From Christmas to Kwanzaa, from Hanukkah to Festivus, we wish you all a happy holiday season. It is holiday week for me. I'm a Christmas person, so hope that you are remaining safe and that you all are happy no matter what you celebrate. We're looking at Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Malice. It was written by Lydia Adetunji and Jack Thorne, the showrunner, directed by Jamie Childs. And here's your synopsis. Lyra and Will find allies who can help them in their search for Will's father. The Magisterium learns something shocking, and Mrs. Coulter meets a formidable foe. That's a pretty good synopsis, I suppose. Welcome to The Dust. My name is Double M.
Double M.
That stands for Matt Murdock. And I am joined by someone who isn't as bad as we thought, even though she will tell complete strangers that she tried to kill me once or twice. It's Holly.
How you doing, Matt?
I'm alive.
Okay.
Hope your holidays are going well, but let's get it right into this and give our ratings for this particular episode. We're going to be going through it all bit by bit, but right off the top, what was your rating of Season 2, Episode 6, Malice?
I'm going to give this episode 8 out of 10 triple S's.
Triple S's?
Yes. Storm Summoning Shaman.
Ooh, hot shaman.
Hot shaman. I think I'm going to agree with you on this point, Matt, that this was very much a giant setup episode with a lot of exposition. Really, it kind of felt like more of a 7.5 rating for me, but I bumped it up just because of my dear Andrew Scott. I was really happy with him and Lee scenes this episode. I think they were my favorite.
Okay, well, hot shaman always makes something better. As you know, Holly, I never rate anything below a 7. Just ask Catfish how frustrating that is sometimes. When we would do podcasts together, he would be giving episodes a 2. I would be giving them a 7. 7 is my bottom scale. Because of that, this rating may not seem as high as it would seem normally, but I'm giving it 8.9, what I like to call double W's. Double
W's?
Wind whisperings.
Mm.
And yes, I agree with you totally. This is a typical kind of formulaic almost penultimate setup episode. You know, you put in a twist or two, maybe have a death. It felt very formulaic to me. And the interesting thing is I'm not even sure that this was supposed to be a penultimate episode. It is for all of this story, but I'm wondering if the Azrael episode was supposed to slip in between this one and the finale. That's what I'm guessing anyway. So it's very formulaic in terms of the penultimate for most of the stories that we're following. And again, we don't know how much was cut from one place to another in order to make up for the lack of the Azrael episode. But I'm assuming, given where Ruta leaves the story in this particular episode, that it was set up to be like this all along, which makes me miss that Azrael episode even more, to be quite perfectly honest. But, and I don't know, there's some adaptation things in this. I guess we can talk about that in the section that we like to call the Double B.
Double B.
Book bitchin' section. But other than that, the gift that we ask for this holiday season is the one that keeps giving all year long, and that's your feedback. Give us a tweet by tweeting at The Dust Podcast, or send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com, or call 314-269-0421 and leave a voicemail Any of that would be wonderful for us if you would just let us know what you're thinking about these episodes, what you're thinking about the podcast. So again, thanks to Keegan Brink, who a while back reached out with just some direct response to some of the podcast stuff, which I obviously, by continuing to use doubles, have still completely ignored. But that's the way that I am. I'm obstinate that way. Speaking of double Ps.
Did you learn that word on the episode last night?
But speaking of the double P, we are part of the double P family of podcasts. They have now, by the time that you hear this, have wrapped up their Mandalorian coverage. That was Parsec Passion Podcast, but we urge you to go back and listen to every single episode. Also, a reminder that I did a couple of podcasts with Catfish this year. If you're into Lovecraft Country, check out Shaga's Surprise on the Double P main feed. Or if you're interested in anything regarding Penny Dreadful or Penny Dreadful City of Angels, find Delightfully Dreadful, that podcast, that's a double D, where Catfish and I rate things not on the double scale, but on the no ma'am scale, which is the way that we hate watched that show towards the end, Penny Dreadful City of Angels anyway. But the whole idea is you can find all of those podcasts also on the Double P YouTube. And we want to be sure to tell you how to do that because our podcasts, our First Look podcasts, show up on their YouTube as well. Go to YouTube and search for Double P Media, or here's a little cheat. You can go to youtube.com/user/what, Holly?
FITTENTRIM.
That is the way you find it. Fit and Trim, FITTENTRIM on YouTube. And if you want to contact them to ask why I'm still around, feel free to tweet at the word double the letters PHQ on Twitter, or you can find them that way on Instagram, or you can go to facebook.com/the word double the letters PHQ. That's enough of the podcast business. How about the television show business? And the ratings are all important to television shows, although I suppose for an HBO show, it's more about subscriptions than ratings. Still, the show has been trending up since its first episode for this season. Through 4 episodes, it has now reached its highest viewership in a live watch at 264,000, which is, again, these increases are very minuscule, but they could still be significant when you get over 250,000. That's always better. So they have continually increased. The largest increase so far has been nearly 13% of their viewership. So we're happy for that, even though we are sad that there's only 1 episode left, Holly. What are we going to do?
I think we're going to cry. I think that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to cry. We're going to cry because we won't have any more His Dark Materials for possibly a long while.
Yeah, it may be 2022 before we see any more His Dark Materials on BBC or HBO for sure. They're looking possibly at starting filming maybe in April. And again, most of that is dependent on how well the world copes with COVID in 2021. You ready to get into this episode, Holly?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got 95 seconds of previously on this time around. Didn't find anything to nitpick at this time like I did last week. And then seems like the witches have picked out a mountain that they want to hang out in near Chitakaze, and they see angels traversing across the sky. And Serafina and Ruta both seem to know that angels haven't allowed themselves to be seen for thousands of years, and the last time that they had been seen was in order to make war. Ruta's going to follow the angels, she says, and bring Azrael back so that they can destroy, I'll carry this over from last week, the Magisterium, while Serafina, Rena, and Lena they're going to go in search of Lyra. Holly, those angels look drunk. They could not keep a straight line. I would not want to give them breathalyzers. They could not keep their altitudes straight. They were a hazard by any FAA regulation. There was one in particular that seemed like it just, was just like it was toying. Maybe they were trying to signal for Ruta to follow them. Is that possible? I don't know. But they're just not keeping their lane. I guess the most important thing is that just the fact that you can see him at all definitely gets Ruta and Serafina's interest, since we haven't seen him since wartime. And I'm just wondering, I guess the angels are being drawn to Azrael's side of the war?
Yeah, I don't know. I was really excited to see them flying. I thought they would. I was like, oh, they're blue. I thought they'd be kind of like gold. Not to nitpick on that too much, but I was like, oh, it wasn't what I expected, but I thought it looked really cool.
I'll be honest, they just look like sparklers to me.
That's what I imagine them to look like anyway. But
okay,
it's pretty close to how I imagined it. Though otherwise, I appreciated it.
All right. I'll tell you what, when you get your fingers cut off and you go and you stick your open wounds in Tulio's sweaty face to punch him out, I mean, you're going to get an infection, Will. That's what's going to happen. And Will got the fever. And his fever dream is his dad telling him that he has a task ahead of him. Now, Pan doesn't think that he can be helped. Pan, the eternal optimist there. Lyra goes to get some water to help him get cool, and all of a sudden she starts hearing people calling her name, and it looks like Angelica and maybe a dozen of her friends or so. They chase her back inside, and they start doing a scene from The Shining, except it's Angelica. It's like, here's Johnny, except it's, here's Angelica. And she has to lock everything. She goes and alerts Will, tries to get him awake. They end up climbing to the roof, and Angelica, and now there's a few less, seems like, kids that are running up the stairs and going up the ladders after her. By the time we get Serafina arriving to save the day, the Deus Ex Witchina, we'll call it, it just seems like Angelica and Paulo are just about the only two left. I guess the maybe Kaisa scared some of them, and there's about 3 of them left. But Lyra apologizes about Tulio to the girls, but then they leave, and then we get our intro music. Gotta say, overall for this episode, I was a little bit disappointed in the Angelica stuff. And since it's already occurred in the show, I don't think it's a spoiler to say who are in the book, but I really wanted the different locale. I really wanted to see someplace. I do understand you don't want to build a whole set for one scene. For economic sense, that makes complete sense as a showrunner. But I wanted to see them, flee to another place, and there were some exciting things that happened, which I think I will save for the book section.
That's fair. I was gonna say I also expected it to be longer, this scene. I was excited for it, looking forward to it, and it just ended so abruptly that I was left wanting a lot more. Cut too short too quickly. But man, I'm gonna disagree with you on the Angelica stuff. I thought she was fine this episode, and I thought particularly that part, the here's Johnny moment, was really scary. I was really terrified of her for a second. Great use of horror stuff in this moment, because it worked on me. I was just like, oh snap! Yeah. Oh my god! I was really scared. I appreciate that.
Let me make myself perfectly clear. I'm not knocking Bella Ramsey's performance. I just don't think that she was given the right stuff this episode overall. So that's just me.
Okay, that's fair. I don't agree with you, but you can have an opinion.
It'll be the wrong one, but I can have one. Yeah. Excellent. Anything else about that?
Again, just like the Serafina, didn't really feel like she scared them. I don't know. I was like, why are they scared of her? Because she flew? Like, it just didn't.
I'd be scared of someone who flew down in front of me. That's for sure.
Maybe, but I feel like these kids already live in a world where specters are taking their parents, and even though they can't see them, they're terrified of them. So why are they terrified of one human witch who didn't even, or humanoid, I guess, witch who could come in and just, all she does is fly and land and not say anything and except go, and then they run. I don't know. It just didn't work for me.
Well, Will doesn't know what to think of Serafina any more than the kids do, evidently, because he's reluctantly letting Serafina inspect his wound, and also he reluctantly lets the knife be seen as well. Actually, it's Lyra who just takes it from him because she's already spilling the beans. It cuts everything instead of nothing. But since Lyra is more trusting, I would just say that, they need to get their story straight before they go down to the station for questioning because, everything and nothing does not jive, especially in front of a witch. Serafina tries to look on the upside of it all and says, hey, it's not a poison wound. Oh, but that's going to need a spell. That's almost like a doctor saying, that's going to need a shot. It's the scariest. That's the scariest thing you ever hear from a witch. That's going to need a spell. Lyra is going to leave Will there to help the witches look for lichens and other stuff that they're going to need. And, they got away from Titsukatsu fairly fast. I suppose they walked. Why didn't the witches why didn't Serafina just go and get one and fly him back and then go and get the other one and then fly him back?
I don't know.
Is
silly.
she not that? I mean, is she, gravity?
They would. I don't think either Will or Lyra would even want to be separated and left alone for that long because the kids might come back or whatever. They walked. It's fine. They needed some exercise. They've been.
Speaking of flying, Lee and Japari, they reached the Great Tear in the sky, in the world. And I got serious Han Solo vibes from Lee Scoresby this time around. But the closest I could liken this scene to was Red 5 going in, making his run. Make yourself comfortable, Mr. Japari. We're going in. Or I guess I could say Han Solo going in on the space slug unknowingly in the asteroid belt in The Empire Strikes Back. I keep trying those Star Wars references because I want you folks to go and find Parsec Passion Podcast. That's a triple P on the Double P network. Let's see. Moving on, we've got someone who's already gone in to a new world is Mary Malone. There's nothing more peaceful than playing I Ching on tower steps, I suppose. She gets to the proper page and she gets this statement. Turning to the summit for provision of nourishment brings about good fortune. Spying about with sharp eyes like a tiger with insatiable craving. Keeping still as a mountain is a bypath. It is a bypath. It means little stone stores and openings. Signs are coming that will steer you on your path. It says something she can finally understand, but between the Irish accent and my terrible understanding of I Ching, I did not comprehend what it was at all. It does make a little bit more sense as the episode goes on, but I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't really get much of that either. I was like, okay, good luck. I said, good luck, Barry. Good luck figuring what all of that means out, because I also did not. I really liked the scene with Lee flying through the anomaly, and he does like a little wahoo as they fly in. He's like, wahoo! It's cool.
Wahoo, kid! You're all clear. Now blow this thing so we can all go home.
There you go. It was right there, just waiting for us. I just thought it was a little sweet little Lee moment.
Nice.
Yay, Lee's in a new world.
Yay, he's meeting a new world. Lyra's always wanted to meet a witch, and Azriel gave her books about witches, evidently. And Serafina's not a fan of those books also. But Lyra asks about Will. Serafina says that they actually need to go back to Lyra's world in order to heal him properly and also to keep Lyra safe. And we go back to Mary, and she's sitting by the shore, and Angelica and Paula are watching. Paula's definitely hungry. She's eating whatever's growing on anything. And they wonder why Mary isn't frightened, because she should be, of the specters. But we know that she was promised that she would be protected. And she is being protected. We see an angel. Holly, we see an angel.
I know. That was exciting. And it wasn't blue. I'm just kidding. I really liked what they did there. That was really subtle approach to how they did the angels. I appreciated that. And, there's clearly a difference. We could see those ones clearly in the sky at night flying very high, but we can't see this one, but just barely, like when the dust moves the right way. So it's kind of interesting. There's some different types of angels out there. We're just beginning to learn about them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you've got your sparkler angels. You got these angels where you can kind of see the shape of the wings, but it's just barely outlined in white and it looks mostly transparent. And my big hope, Holly, was that Will had been seeing angels, who were going ahead to pave the way for Mary Malone. Perhaps when he saw the wisps at the end of episode 4. Evidently not, because those were dark. They was tainted in darkness a little bit around the edges. You could see the outline of the angel here was definitely in whiteness. So I guess I've still got to worry for Will and his specter susceptibility. That's a double S.
Yeah. Also, what I liked about this was the angel was it's good setup for the double B we're going to see later.
With the double B?
No, it's a spoiler. I can't reveal that double B just yet. We'll talk about it in the double B book bitches section.
I'm going to get all my double Bs confused by the time we get there. I can tell.
So many.
Speaking of being confused, Lyra is actually now confused to the point that she wants to consider the witch's proposal to go home. But Will wants to look for Dad, naturally. He says to check the alethiometer. And she does. And it says that Japari's close. He's in this world. And they are. They've made it through. The Wahoo worked. And Japari and Lee are headed towards Chitakaze. Japari says the bearer may be in Chitakaze. Lee says that Japari is a strange shaman. I love how he uses shaman. I don't know if we're supposed to say shaman now or shaman. I don't care. But most shamans can fly. And Japari says he is flying because he summoned Lee to get him flying. He's been on many journeys with all different kinds of people. And they ponder whether this journey is folly or wisdom. And Japari doesn't really know, but he knows that they must find the bearer and tell him what his task is. And when Lee asks if it will protect Lyra, Japari says it will protect them all. They're looking for Will, obviously, and Will's having a little double T.
Double T?
Trouble traveling. And Lyra wants to stop for a rest in order to help Will out, but Will's not very happy. He wants to find Dad. He thinks that Lyra's looking for all kinds of excuses to keep from doing that. And fittingly, he gets the cold treatment. Aw, their first little spat. And Lyra does accept Will's apology after he realizes that he was an idiot. So it's just one episode late that Will gets to be an idiot too. So they take a rest. What you got for me, Holly?
I love they kept the line, here I am flying, from the book. I thought that was great. It was just so cheeky. Oh, God. I love you, Andrew Scott. Please don't be listening to our podcast, but I love your performance. Sorry. And I like that he kind of talks about exploring the different types of religion and magic and everything else in the world, and that there's folly everywhere. It fits really well with the themes of kind of growing up and just realizing that things, maybe that you thought were magical just aren't. I don't know. It just all kind of worked for me. I liked that scene.
Yep.
I think last week I had talked about Will kind of silently conveying the pain in his hand, and I'm just really glad to see how much it's actually getting to him this week. And
that's mean. I love to see Will, and I love to see how much it's actually getting to him this week.
No, okay, that sounds terrible, but I don't mean it like that. I just mean that I knew that his hand was going to be a problem, and I was appreciating the subtle way he played it last week, and now it's clearly getting worse, and he's lashing out at Lyra and then rightfully apologizing for lashing out at Lyra. And it's working for me. I just love it. It's just little details from the book that they're keeping in, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think I forgot to mention this in the last little section, but I kind of forgot that Lyra doesn't meet Serafina Pekkala in season 1. She only meets Kaisa, because she does in the book. So, they know each other already. So this is like a reunion for them in the book and not like a first-time meeting. But I just thought it was cute. And I like that she kind of was like a pestering Serafina with questions. And Serafina's like, no, I did not read the Harry Potter series, I just thought all of that was really good, and I appreciate Serafina in these scenes with humans way more than I appreciate them with her and the other witches, just them. So this has been nice stuff for all these characters for me.
Mrs. Coulter is dressed to the nines, ready for her double S.
Double S.
Spectre Safari. And she and Boreal leave Oxford behind for the Crossroads world. Boreal is not sure at all, but Mrs. Coulter has never been more sure. And as to where they're heading, Mary Malone's already there. She's found Will in Lyra's tavern. Naturally, they're not there now because, that's the way stories work. And she suddenly hears Angelica and Paolo's voices, even though I feel like she did see them when they were on the bridge overlooking her in the earlier scene. Now she's going to call them out. She tells them to show themselves. She's being crafty with the muesli snacks. Again, she's using that lying trick. Telling them that it's no good for them, but it actually is. That's a different kind of serpent, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, this is a different world where people will take candy from strange adults, for certain. And Mary deduces that they are orphans from all of this Spectre talk. Angelica tells Mary that the other adults went to the mountain. Where did we hear that before? From Mary's eating. Also, I guess because the other kids didn't get to hurt Lyra anymore, they kind of voted Angelica off the island. And they headed for the mountain too. So after the subject of Lyra comes up, Mary decides that these kids might need to learn some lessons about what right and wrong is. Murder, bad. Murder, bad. Mary also learns that there's witches about, and I'm sure she's really thrilled to hear about that as well. And Paula, despite all of that, she just wants a hug. Angelica wants a boss and a bath. And Mary says she'll take them to their adults because these adults are evidently on the mountain that she feels like she's looking for. So it's two birds or one muesli bar. One stone. I don't know. But Mary is multitasking. I feel like the writers here are just hitting us a little bit too hard over the head with the whole, Angelica wants to commit murder, but she's really not a bad girl. It just feels weird to me. I just couldn't get over it. It's one of those things. It's like wonderfully weird in a way. That's a double W. But Angelica just being so frank about it, and it's like, I wanted to kill her. I need a bath. I need a boss. How can you be any more frank than that? I just love that part. But the Paula hug did not do anything for me, Holly. I know I saw Twitter blow up over that, at least on the Sunday afternoon that it aired on the BBC, and I'm just kind of like, I didn't really feel anything. I know I'm cold and heartless, especially when it comes to children in television shows. I've been that way. Go listen to any podcast that I do about that has children in the television show, and I'm especially cold. I don't know why that is. It's obviously a me problem, and why you're having to endure that, folks who are listening, I don't know. I did think that the whole of the scene, despite not liking the Paula hug, still worked in some ways, but the overall theme of how I feel jerked around kind of about how I'm supposed to feel about Angelica didn't work for me. I do appreciate Mary's patience and being kind, and also under the seams, seeing the wheels turn in Mary's head, how, she's like, oh, wait a minute, mountain. Okay. Yeah, we can do this. I'll help you kids. Sure.
I don't know. It worked for me. I guess I don't sweat Angelica's grief, or even her feeling like she needs to murder Lyra and Will, because I remember being a kid and saying, I hope you die to my brother, and for stakes that were way lower, it's just, I think part of it is just being a kid and not,
No,
understanding.
Holly, there is a big difference between saying that and then actively trying to kill somebody.
But I don't think they know, and they're in survival mode, and they're still kids. They don't really know any better, and I don't know if they would have actually killed them. I think they just would have beat them up until they got the knife, I don't think they would have completely, I don't know, maybe they would have, and that's whatever. I'll still defend them because I feel like they're survivors, they've had to deal with terrible things. Their city, their whole civilization just fell apart. Her parents are dead, and then the next person in her family that could have like helped take care of them and raise them is also now gone. I'd be pretty angry too. And like when you're a kid, all those emotions are just even more heightened. I get it. I get that she would probably want to murder them. It doesn't make it right. I'm not like, I don't know. I guess I am defending her, but I don't know. I understand her feeling. I empathize with her. I really do. And that hug totally worked for me. I mean, poor Paula, she just really needs someone to love her. Like, no one is there to love her. And like how they were going to give it to one stranger. They're going to let one stranger come in and tell them what to do and make them take baths and whatever, just because she was safe. Like that's all they're looking for is they don't have anywhere to be safe from. They have no one to keep them safe.
They could have headed up to the mountain on their own.
Oh, no, but and maybe they don't talk about this a lot in the show, but in the books, they were kind of always working with those adults in the mountains, but they were the only ones that could go into the city and like get food and supplies and things that they might need while they were hiding out. And I don't know, maybe the show kind of didn't address that enough, and maybe we'll see more of that next week if we meet these kids in the mountain or these adults in the mountain that are still alive. This didn't bother me. This warmed my heart. It made me feel a lot more for Mary, actually, than the kids, for her to having to, like, deal with this temptation of wanting to care for these children, and she can't because she has something else important to do, and I'm sad for her, too. It's really just heartbreaking. This whole thing's just heartbreaking for me.
Okay, well, I'm cold. I'm cold and heartless. That's
true.
That's
and hate children.
And we've determined that's the determination that we've come to here.
Matt, if you were born in Lyra's world, your demon would have already been settled when you were born.
There's no doubt about that. In the balloon, let's get out of this. In the balloon, Jabari explains that he feels closer to Will here. Can't imagine why. And that the last time he was at Chitakazi, he didn't even have a demon yet. So that was a great segue, Holly, that I totally missed out on. Or at least you don't see your demon in his world or our world. And Lee offers coffee, probably just to shut him up. But the igniter isn't working. So Lee wants hot shaman to conjure up some hot fire. Jopari does the appropriate amount of concentration and then pulls out a box of matches from his pocket.
I love this so much.
That was funny. I enjoyed that. That was great.
Yes. I wish these types of scenes between Lee and John Perry were like 10 minutes long every time. I would just love this.
Oh, you just want to see hot shaman. That's all it is about.
Okay.
Calling you out.
She says before she puts on Sherlock season 2 to go to bed tonight.
Yeah, well, I'm just interested in looking at Double S.
Oh, yeah, Double S?
Seductive Serafina, because she's worried about she's a little worried about Will's cut, and she's also worried about Lyra hanging out with Will because it makes sense. He is a murderer. I mean, he is a good kind, but he is a murderer. And Lyra says that she's perfectly safe with Will. And she has instructions from the alethiometer to help Will find his dad, Jopari. She tells Serafina that she had stopped trusting the alethiometer after Roger died, but now realizes how important it is and how it is part of her. And turns out that Serafina admires obstinacy, and she will also, because of that, protect Will if that's what it takes to protect Lyra. Lyra does give a warning to Serafina about specters, and Serafina still offers help, but they will have to find that vein or artery and get a clamp on it, meaning that he's bleeding too much. They've got to do a magic surgery, I suppose, and we get the obligatory slow-motion witches healing ceremony, which you must have anytime witches are present and they're healing. And they're whispering Lithuanian dialogue. If you believe Sasha Frost, who plays Rena, I believe. I don't remember. Yeah, she plays Rena. In one of her Instagram stories, she said it showed a shot of this scene, and she put on the caption, "Totes flute in Lithuanian now." I love that. They've done all that they can. in Lithuanian. And now Lyra needs to tell them where to look for Japari, or in their case, from their perspective, just Will's dad. And the alethiometer says up, meaning up the mountain. And Serafina tells Lyra to keep Will warm and get some rest. And Pan says, we feel safe here, don't we? And I don't understand how anybody feels safe. I don't understand from this whole thing about what Japari says, that if demons come out of you in Lyra's world, they don't go back inside you in Will's world. I mean, is this a no returns policy kind of thing? And I am, as I mentioned before, I like the matches joke because it seemed very much a dad joke to me, and I'm a fan of those.
Yeah, it was great. And it was a great callback to just earlier when he's talking about there's folly everywhere. He's like, see, I'm flying. I got you flying. I got the power of fire all here in my pocket. I did feel like pangs in my heart when he said he felt so close to Will. I was just like, oh, you have no idea. You're so close. You don't even know that you're looking for him, but you're looking for him. I can't wait.
There's twice in this episode now that Pan did not keep the red panda form. What did you call it last week? Panda-Lyman?
Panda-Lyman, yes.
Yeah, did not keep the Panda-Lyman form. They settle down for a long winter's nap since it is holiday season. He changes back to the form that we're most used to seeing him in. He did that once on the rooftop also. He actually turned into a bird so he could get up through the roof. And then turn back into his the form that I'm used to seeing him in most of the time.
Yeah, the little white ferret or ermine, they call
Ermine,
it. Yeah. It's cute. That is maybe Pan's second cutest form, at least in the face. Those little eyes are just adorable. And and call back to the movie when he pops out of the bag when he's watching the movie with those big little eyes. I'm like, oh, so cute. Oh, Pan.
So now we come to Holly's favorite part of the episode, where we go to the magnanimous Gesterium. Because that's where we often think that one should kill the messenger. But not so, says McPhail. I don't kill messengers. I'm not Hitler after all, Matt. I don't kill messengers. Frau Pavel has some answers for Cardinal McPhail. Coulter has gone into another world looking for Lyra, because Coulter had asked Frau Pavel to ask the alethiometer about Lyra. Pavel has some answers about that as well. Lyra is known by the witches due to a prophecy, and she is known as Mother of us all, tempted by the serpent, downfall of all. Psych! We're not going to tell you, but I think we can figure out what that means if you just think about it. Coulter's ears must be burning about the magisterium talking about her, because as she strolls through Sitagaze, she gives Boreal a hard time, naturally, for being so brave, because that's what he is. But she promises him that he will have the subtle knife if he helps her find Lyra. They find a local, and Mrs. Coulter recognizes almost instantly what has happened. But despite the severing connection that Boreal makes, Coulter says that it's stronger, deeper. That's not enough. We've got to go back to the magisterium one more time, because, yes, Cardinal McPhail was good with his word. Frau Pavel was not killed. He's still there amongst the men as McPhail delivers his declaration of war. He did not kill the messenger. Instead, he just wants to kill a child. He's going to declare war on a child, because that seems much more sane. And the child's name is Lyra Belacqua. Psych again. We don't get what the name was that Frau Pavel was trying to say. We're never going to get it. So they have already, he's making this announcement as if he's asking for permission to declare war. But he's basically just telling them it's kind of like the Council of Eight that the president has to go to after he's already killed Osama bin Laden. And he tells them that he sent troops to the New World to basically begin a Spanish Inquisition there. So, with all of that, you mentioned Harry Potter vibes earlier, Holly.
A couple of times this season.
It's like, is the name that Lyra is known by by the witches. Is that like saying Voldemort or something? Just say it. Just say the word. It's one syllable. It begins with an E. That's all I'm going to say. It's not that hard. You put all of those clues together for what? No payoff? You're going to make people think about something so that they look back on it like it's stupid? It's like, why couldn't you just say the word? What's so awful about that word? You're willing to say everything else. Why not that word? I'm done.
Are we going to say it? Or...
Nope, we're not going to say it until the book section because they don't want us to, obviously.
It was beyond frustrating, but you can put it together and think about it a lot. They talk about it. It's kind of been a running theme throughout. They talk about it in the very first episode. If you remember, just think back on what Lyra's very first class scene was about with whichever professor, scholar she was having a lesson with. They talked about it there in the very first scene of His Dark Materials with Lyra in it. You'll get it there. We get it already in this season with the serpent. Mary has to play the serpent. So, I mean, it's there. It's right there.
Yeah. And we're not allowed to say it until the book reader section because they didn't.
I didn't like the placement of this in the episode because it just made me feel like they were going to come back and say it eventually, and then they didn't. And I think that's what made it a little more frustrating. But
I just thought it'd probably be one too magisterium scenes for you in general. One too many, or maybe even too many.
Well, we know Mrs. Coulter is trying to find out the answer to this same question, so maybe when somebody tells her, we'll finally hear it once and for all.
We get back to Serafina and the gang there, and Serafina implies that she's kind of healed Will. For now, anyway. Participation trophy for doing her best. But Serafina is also trying for the participation trophy of being protective of Lyra to Will. Kaisa, he wants to let the cat out of the bag. Tell him, Kaisa says. And instead, she does this little dance saying Kaisa has to actually tell Will about a prophecy of a girl and a boy who travels with her. But didn't we just hear not that long ago from Kaisa that she can't know anything about the prophecy? So why are you telling the kid who always tells everything to Lyra? I mean, there's nothing he keeps from Lyra. And now he finds out that he's part of the prophecy himself. You think he's not going to want to tell her that? And should he be told anything about this? Serafina quickly adds for them to watch each other's backs, of course, because her mission is to protect Lyra.
Let's talk about this now.
Yeah. I understand that telling someone that there is a prophecy is totally different than trying to guide Lyra's hand about the prophecy or being specific about the prophecy. But, I mean, Serafina has been meddling with it herself. She's been telling Lyra to come back to her world this whole time. You can't have it both ways. Serafina should have told Kaisa to shut up and just said, hey, we're here to protect you. What do you want to do next? That's all Serafina's role is in this. I'm miffed at Serafina right now. And Kaisa.
Yeah, I agree with you. Telling someone that there is prophecy is different than telling them what the prophecy is. So I'm not that miffed by all of this. I think her trying to bring her back into her world just really kind of shows for how a witch-like character who's supposed to be very worldly and understand things greater than regular humans still is not seeing the big picture if she is just worried about how it's affecting their world, I guess. And she wants to bring Azrael back to their world too, and they think everything is kind of centered in their universe. And even though Azrael started the whole there, it doesn't necessarily make it right that they're the only thing out there. They're the most important thing out there, because they're not. And yeah, it just didn't bother me really that Will knows, or that Lyra knows, could potentially know that there is prophecy about her. As long as she doesn't know what she has to do, she's gonna be fine. I feel like the biggest motivation for going back to their world was so she can get the right kind of herbs and plants and lichens that knows will work.
Send a witch back across the void, have them go get it, and bring it back.
That's a good point. I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call Matt's tomatoes. This is Matt making a big deal about something that really means nothing.
you are a little bit, but people will have, that complaint a little bit too about like, why are they telling him anything about a prophecy? But I think it's important for him to know. And I just, in general, I like this whole bit where like, okay, you're important, but also she's important. Y'all take care of each other. I liked that. I think that's what we probably need to take away the most from this scene. Okay. It's the most important thing is that they are both important and they have to take care of each other because Serafina, even though she just met Lyra in this episode, knows that Lyra is going to do whatever she can to help Will because she knows that she owes it to Will. But Lyra needs to remember that she's important too.
Well, I need to get off this subject. So how about we play a game of Clue again?
Okay.
Mrs. Coulter in the courtyard with the poison. And the poison she finds right here in the apothecary where her and Boreal have stopped in to pick up some wine probably. But why do all of this plotting when you have to test yourself against the specters first? She walks towards them. She's got Monkey in tow. Boreal, once again, bravely locks himself inside the apothecary and waits to see what happens. Monkey doesn't like specters, so Marissa, she does a thing. She suppresses the monkey to a very calm, almost zombie-like, non-existent state, and then moves towards the double S's.
Double S's.
Swarming specters.
Mm.
They, I don't know, do they fear her touch? And then she, at the end of it, because she's not being attacked by them, she allows the monkey to kind of come to a little bit. So I love the fact that Mrs. Coulter has embraced wearing pants. She does those pants justice. But I do keep looking at her and imagining that she's just going on some kind of safari, like she's going out looking for lions or something. I want to see a safari hat on her. Like every time I see that, I'm just like, where's the hat? Where's the big hat?
I watched this with my roommate, and she said it looked like she was about to go ride a horse.
That's good too. That's good
it
too.
Made me laugh.
Yeah. Is she doing the quarter mile or is she doing the full mile? So how is she fending these specters off? She's going to explain to Boreal, but I was just kind of like, at first when I was watching this, I'm like, is she just making herself smell bad in a way? We talked about how you make yourself taste bad in an earlier episode. It is, I guess, because the monkey has gone dormant, and it's the connection between her monkey and her that is most resemblant to whatever it is that the specters are attracted to. As she put it in the last episode, dust. Somehow she's able to suppress that here. And she just makes herself smell like rotten meat. Is that what's going on there?
I don't know. I just thought about this now. I feel really bad for them. This seems like...
Do not tell me that you're going to empathize with the specters here.
No, the monkey.
Oh,
I feel a little more sorry for the monkey after watching this because it's like she just turned him off. It's like she's just like, okay, just kind of should just like hit a button and monkey is in like sleep mode. And I just thought, why didn't you do this last week when you had to like leave him behind? Why couldn't you just like turn him off? And that way he wouldn't have to feel so much pain with you like going really far away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, Mrs. Coulter. See, I don't like empathizing with the monkey, and now I do. So, damn it. But I thought this was actually a really neat explanation, because the book, it's kind of a mystery still. They don't really explain it very well, how she is able to do this, so it was really cool to be able to see it. I don't know, as far as them, like, touching her, I don't think they were afraid. I think they were curious as to... I don't know. Maybe they were confused. They're like, why are we not eating her?
She would move her hand towards one and it would instinctively go the other way.
Yeah, because it doesn't, maybe she's not giving it what they want, so they're just kind of recoiling from her. It's not what they expect. They're used to like, oh, these are delicious. What's wrong with this one?
Yeah, this one was cooked poorly.
Overdone? Undercooked? Overcooked?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Undercooked, probably.
I had this in my notes. Mrs. C practices her own type of intercision on herself. The way the monkey kind of goes into sleep mode, the demons we saw last season at Bolvanger were kind of similar. So it's just kind of weird that she kind of learned how to do this to herself without having to go through Or has she? Go through some sort of intercision process.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, we may not know the answer to that yet, but we do know that Lee is looking down basically at the same swarm of specters, and he's kind of reporting back to Japari, who seems to prefer sitting all the time. He doesn't want to really stand up unless he absolutely has to. I don't know if he's afraid of heights or what, but Japari's just kind of leaning up against the balloon cabin wall. He also knows that if the specters are at the tower, then the knife must not be there. Evidently, the knife repels specters as well, which we do confirm a little bit later in the episode. But I don't know how Japari knows that they're that close to... Maybe he can see over the edge or something, but I don't know if he can see over the edge to see where the specters are. Doesn't appear to me from the angles and the height that they're at that he would be able to see the specters at all, or let alone the top of the tower. But that's another Matt's tomato.
Maybe he's seeing it through his demon.
Oh, well, maybe so. I didn't think about that. Shaman, I guess I'll call him, Japari, also tells us that the specters feed on dust. So, blah, blah, now we know the connection there. So it would be senseless to go down there because Lyra, being a child, would be safe from them still, and they would be dead. So, instead, let's head over the river and through the woods to Grandmother's house. Again, it's holiday week. And we'll look for the bearer over there. And Hester hears the foghorn of the Magisterium ships, which have now suddenly appeared in the world as well, after MacPhail had sent them. And they are coming. But Japari says, don't worry, we've got the wind. We'll be all right for now. Below, Mrs. Coulter has found a way to just kind of whisk a couple of specters away, and they go way out of town. They're probably headed towards Will and Lyra somewhere because they're headed way out of town with a wave of her hand. And then she wants to celebrate with Boreal. And again, we get that confirmation the specters do eat dust. But we kind of figured that out last week in a way through Mrs. Coulter's thinking and other things that we saw. But thanks for the information anyway, Hot Shaman. And we also learned that specters don't like the knife, which we also probably could have put together up until this point. So other than just getting a shot of Hot Shaman, I don't see much of the point for telling us all of this information that we already knew. How about you, Holly? What do you think?
I will never complain about double exposition in a John Perry scene, so I'll take it. I'll take more of it. Time to celebrate. Let's have a drink.
If Japari doesn't like heights, evidently Will and Lyra, we know that Lyra has no problem with heights, the way she jumps off of roofs at Jordan College. But they're sitting on the edge of a very high cliff, and my first thought is, okay, they're at the edge of something where if any one of them got startled, they could fall to their death. Serafina, you had one job. Protect the girl. Where are you? Why are you not protecting the girl when she could fall off a cliff, for crying out loud? Anyway, Lyra knows that Angelica was trying to kill her and all, but she wasn't that bad, she guesses. I'm still just perplexed. Will's got experiences with mean people that Lyra doesn't have, and he relays a story about his mom, and that was very touching. And he fantasizes about his dad having all of the answers. Actually, Will, if you hang around for just a minute, he does, yes. And he's learned to trust really no one because of the way that his family has been treated. Lyra reminds him that he trusts her, better trust her, right? You better, boyfriend, you better trust me. And off they go with the witches. I guess they're going up, but to me it looks like they're sitting in a ravine. So I don't know how they're going to go up from a ravine, unless Serafina might want to lift them by flying. Mrs. Coulter has continued phase 2 of her plot, by the way. We were going back to the game of Clue. Nothing weakens a man like wine. But he wants to know her trick with specters, and she says she suppresses what makes her human. Ooh. And the monkey indignantly concurs when she says that. And now he's making plans. He always wanted an equal to share the knife and its potential with. And see, he's learned something. She's his equal. He's learned a lot about women since being put down by Mary Malone. Kissing and, giggling ensue. Carlos just seems to want to be able to function normally by this point, and phase 3 now begins. And this is the phase that every villain does. They tell their victims the evil plan that they have with a little bit of flair. It's too little, too late, Boreal. You had it all wrong. She ain't no equal. She's been your superior the whole time, bro. And the Lyra card was one too many, and your ambitions are small. Man, guys, we know what that means when somebody calls our ambitions small, right? Time to die. Single teardrop. Snake goes poof. Goodbye, old friend Boreal. And now we have finally arrived at Mrs. Coulter in the courtyard with the poison. The game of Clue is concluded, and Boreal is even more shriveled up than his ambitions were before.
He never got it. He just never quite got it. The bar is really low, men.
Hey, Boreal, the bar is really low, and Boreal still managed to play a mean game of limbo.
Yeah.
He really did.
No, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He did.
Slipped right under that bar.
Yep. It was supposed to be a hurdle, but that's okay. He's gone now, and so it's over. Man. Yeah. Boreal. That was great. I loved seeing this. I appreciated it.
You appreciated saying goodbye to Boreal? I'm going to miss Boreal, actually, because I understand that this plays perfectly into the way anybody who is in Lyra's world, male-wise, in terms of especially being connected with the Magisterium, would think, about all of this and how he really thought that he was being complimentary by calling her an equal and all of this stuff. But now that he's gone, who are we going to pick on? McPhail? I mean, do you want to see more scenes with McPhail so that we can pick on him?
Yeah, we can pick on Fra Pavel, too, for being a little wuss when he wouldn't say the name, so... About that Will and Lyra scene, it was really cute. I liked it. I liked them just getting to know each other, and it's very cute. And my roommate even said, "Oh, look, they're falling in love." And I was like, oh my God, it's so cute. I can't.
Well, I hate to think about what those boys must have been doing to his mother that was more mean than Lyra's attempted murder. That Angelica was doing, because that's what she was citing as mean, and he was like, what they did was more mean. That's I don't know how to respond to that. Also, I do feel like all episodes Lyra's been kind of a double P.
A double P.
A pushy partner. She keeps laying all of these girl traps, and Will just keeps falling into them. He keeps getting his leg caught in them. Speaking of which, like father, like son. Didn't Grumman get his leg caught in a trap in that one of the stories we heard back in episode 3?
It sure was. That's funny.
Speaking of which, Lee is a bit annoyed at Japari's claim about they're going to be fine as the Magisterium ships are closing in. Japari, just needs to relax. But Lee says, hey, you need to wake up, buddy. But Japari's already thinking about it. He says, yeah, okay, wind's maybe not enough. Let's bring on a full-on tropical storm low-pressure center and see how those authority airships fare with that.
Ooh.
Lee's in a balloon, too, which one would think, storm's not so good for that either. But Japari trusts Lee, says he trusts his skills. So he just pulls his hood over his head because, rain. And Lee is incredulous that the whole thing's happening. But Hester is like, well, we're kind of stuck with him now, so for Lyra! And back at Mobile Prophecy Central, there's some specters floating around. And one attacks Rena, played by Sasha Frost. But Lyra tells Will to show the knife, and hey, that works. So, yeah, I guess what Japari told us was correct, that if, they wouldn't be around the knife if it was still in the tower. I guess all of Hot Shaman's tricks are indeed no better for the bait than for the fish, right? What you going to do?
What? I mean, I don't know. Tell me again after the next scene. I gotta say, when that scene transitioned though from Lee and John Perry, and he's like summoning up that storm right to the next scene. As soon as it changed over, like there was thunder, and then it changed, like whatever. Then the scene ends, and it moves, and it cuts to the next scene. I swear to God, it started pouring down rain outside my house, and I was like, "Oh my God!" He literally summoned that storm to my house.
I think you're putting too much faith in the hot shaman.
Maybe, but it was a cool effect that was not planned and surprised me and added to my experience watching the episode by a lot.
That's good.
Really cool.
Way to go, BBC. Use those weather machines, and HBO. Use those weather machines more for full effect when we're watching the episodes. The storm does seem to be working, but Hester does have to remind celebrating Lee how to do math exactly, because one ship going down isn't enough. There's still 2 left. And they open fire. They do some damage to the balloon. And Joe Perry says, "That's enough. I've had enough." And he goes to the forward of the cockpit. And he flips those Magisterium ships the bird. Actually, he flips them thousands of birds. Another ship ends up going down. The last one turns. And Lee's about to celebrate. But that ship that's turning isn't turning because it's going away, Lee. It's turning because it's got big guns on its broadside, and it starts shooting again with a little bit better range and does some damage to gas gauges on the balloon. And now Lee's balloon is going down just like a Freddie King song. And so that's exciting. We didn't see him die, so I guess no one's actually worried here yet. I mean, we don't even get to see the impact. Also, why does Hester always have to be the bearer of bad news? Why does she have to be the Frau Pavel for that duo? And fortunately, Lee won't kill the messenger either. Plus, and this is just me, probably, but that whole balloon descent thing, it just seemed a little wonky to me in terms of the visual effects. And there's a new emoticon to go along with His Dark Materials hashtag. As of last week, and maybe that affected me in one way or another, but I was already starting to look at this scene like a cartoon because of that, because that is kind of just a hand-drawn kind of image with the emoticon. So maybe that was affecting the way I saw this, but it just looked wonky. I don't know if the motion control was off within the computers. It just looked weird, and I don't normally comment about the visual effects. Normally, they do a fantastic job. It's the first one that I've really been nitpicky on throughout the whole season, but to me, it's important, and to me, it didn't really work.
I disagree. It worked for me. I think the descent, it didn't bother me because the balloon was crashing so fast that I was just worried for them and how they were going to crash. I'm just worrying about how they're going to crash as safely as possible. There's no doubt about it. They're going to crash the speed they're coming down. It was terrifying. So I did not notice anything wonky with the visual effects because I was scared for them.
I think that's what it was for me, Holly, was the fact that the balloon was moving at one speed and the rest of the shot was moving at another that made it look really wonky to me.
I don't know. I had my eyes on the balloon, and that was it, and I was scared. That's all I can say.
You were just seeing if you could get a close-up of Hot Shaman. I know.
Oh, my God. The crows. A murder of crows. A feast for crows, if you will. This was awesome. I loved that scene. That's probably my favorite bit of the episode. Joppery got that vigor from his time in Colombia. Shout out to anybody who has ever played Bioshock Infinite. It's a great game. It's probably my favorite game. It's got a great story. There's multiverse. I'm getting off topic, but I want to draw parallels between John Perry and Booker DeWitt now. So listeners out there, please hit me up. Yeah, clearly there's similarities between those two things, like this show and that game, and that we might all appreciate.
I don't think I've played a video game since maybe Super Nintendo, so
you're old school. No, and this game I'm referencing is pretty old. It came out in 2013, but that's old for video games, Matthew. That is old.
20 years before that was the last time I played a video game, Holly.
Okay, well, 6 consoles later, and and now we have 2 more coming out. Like 2 more have come out since that game came out. So And I don't know. That was really cool, though. I like the birds. And I like crows, especially. I think they're crows. If they are ravens, please somebody correct me. But I thought they were crows. And it works. It works better for my joke if it's crows. So please be crows and not ravens.
Yeah.
Either way, it was cool. It was cool how he Bran Starked those things all over that Zeppelin.
Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. I did. I like that shot, too. I love the power of that moment. I thought that was fantastic.
It was probably the most badass thing we've seen him do. So it was super neat.
It was super cool. But you have done nothing but trump me all episode with my thoughts. So I have 3 words for you.
Okay.
That's the game where we try to describe the episode in 3 words. And folks, we want you to do it too. Send your tweets to @TheDustPodcast. You can send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call 314-269-0421 and leave a voicemail. I'm going to give my 3 words first because I'm still in magisterium mode. And in magisterium mode, men go first. My 3 words are triple S.
Triple S.
Yeah. Spectacular specter skullduggery. It's all about Mrs. Coulter. That entire scene of her first encountering the specters, that was a visual feast. You know, if you can do the smoke monster that well, why can't you do the balloon that well? And just the leap of confidence, or I think it's confidence. It certainly wasn't probably a leap of faith, although, you know, where does theology not meet science for Mrs. Coulter, right? But now Mrs. Coulter is the ruler of Chitakase. No one can ever supplant her anymore as long as she controls the specters. None of them little adults that are sitting up on the mountain can come back down. She can just sick a specter on them if she wants. So she wins everything. And so my 3 words are spectacular, specter, and skullduggery, of course, for finally showing Boreal the door.
Okay. Mine's kind of similar, but it's a triple B.
Oh, you got to be like me, huh? Triple B.
Yeah, it's Bye Bye Boreal. So kind of
like it.
Sticking. It kind of connects well with yours. I did appreciate Arion's portrayal of Boreal. In the books, he's like a much older character, or maybe not much older, but he's portrayed as an older character. So I kind of like that they made him a little bit younger, kind of handsome. Although the stuff he did this season didn't really was a real big turnoff, you know, even and up to these final moments of him like, I'm gonna lock myself in here and make sure Mrs. Coulter can't escape if she needs to like calling her his equal. How dare he? But overall, this actor did a really wonderful job with this role, and I was very excited to see it. And now we say goodbye to Boreal. Rip.
So at Michael VK1 gets back to us once again. Thank goodness. We'd love to hear from him. We've got all kinds of stuff coming from him all the time. We appreciate that. His 3 words for this episode: that looks sore. Love it. Here's funny. At Dudson Warren, the Hedge Knight, is a poet and didn't know it because his 3 words were, I need more. We've got 2 sets from our friend Elena, who says, for episode 6, Spectres, Balloons, Hugs. For episode 5, Monkey, Dust, Worlds. Narissa Suku at Narissa_Suku says, too many words to describe this episode, but the 3 words that I got from the episode that I can put in a sentence is strength is salvation. Our friend Laura Silvertongue, who is at Laws0908, says 3 words: angelic presence grows. That it did. She also added more words. Arg! This was really good. There were a few moments I would have liked to linger on longer, and a couple that seemed ideal for straight from the book dialogue, and we didn't get it. But it's playing out very faithfully to the book. Significant emotional impact already. I mentioned earlier that Catfish and I did a couple of podcasts this year, the Delightfully Dreadful podcast and Shoggoth Surprise, which you can find on the main Double P feed, we became friends with a great set of podcasters from over across the pond. Check them out. They do all kinds of great coverage. They did coverage on Penny Dreadful City of Angels. They did coverage on Lovecraft Country as well. So be sure to check them out. I think it's usually Derek who sends these 3 words over when he does stuff, or sends stuff over to me and Catfish in the past. So thank you very much, Derek from TV Podcast Industries. You can follow him at TV Pod Industries on Twitter. And the comments were, another great episode, and I can't wait for next week's finale. So my 3 words would be keep going up. Thank you very much to TV Podcast Industries, who always do a great podcast on anything they do. I think they're currently doing one on Pennywise. They also check out a lot of hero movies, and evidently they got to see the Wonder Woman 84
cool
movie in a theater at the premiere. So I think they did a podcast about that as well. So be sure to go back and check that out. From them, just follow at TV Pod Industries on Twitter. Our old friend Jonathan at Dragonfell UK says, can't do this episode justice in a single set of 3 words, but them's the rules. So hugs for Paula.
Nice.
I love it.
I love it.
Our friend Mylene, who is at Mile with a Y_L_V, says, what a difference a week makes. Too many words. Let's see. Shaman, specters, angels. Miles McLeod at McLeod_Miles with a Y says, game of witchcraft. Excellent. And then we've got a whole bunch of feedback from Holly. Some of it we'll be putting in this section. Some of it we'll save for the book reader section. This is at Tracy084, who says, I know we all praise Ruth Wilson's skills to the skies, but she really is something else. I don't understand how. I just don't. And praise to the editors and the camera people or whoever that managed to catch all of these emotions for The Scholar. About Pan as a Wolverine, and perhaps you know because I'm commenting as I listened to last week's podcast and or about Holly's animal work.
Wee.
But to add another layer to the nod to Logan, it also nods to the books as they're in the Mustelid family, as are Ermines and Pine Martens. So there's a class that
That's such a brilliant... thank you for that. That was awesome. I did not know that. That was awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you for that tweet.
And Holly adds, the scene with Lyra and Mrs. Coulter in The Scholar, everything you're saying is spot on. What blows my mind is how Mrs. Coulter managed then, and when she locked the monkey up, how there's some force separating them, no matter how subtle it appears. I could feel it. Incredible. Excellent. Thank you so much. We've got some more comments from Holly and from Dragonfell UK that we're including in the book section coming up at the end of the podcast. But first, we've got to play What's Worse? So this is the game where we try to examine what's worse in an episode. We usually try to do it in kind of a fun way if we can. Sometimes it's just not possible. But the idea is somebody poses a question, the other person gets to pick which side of that argument as to which is worse and argue it first. And the person asking the question is left holding the bag of arguing the one that wasn't chosen. It's a must argue. There are no agreements on these particular games. That's the way it goes. And usually it's quite fun. For me, I don't know about for Holly. But, Holly, you or me first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
You're going to like it because it's been a big theme in this episode. We've been arguing back and forth about it already.
Oh, boy.
So, what's worse? As a kid, so you have to think about this as a perspective of a kid, which you will not be able to do, Matthew, because you were born with a fully settled demon. I'm going to win this.
My demon is an elephant, by the way.
As a kid.
It's the elephant in the room, always.
I thought because you always remember. As a kid, making fun of another kid's special needs mom, or wanting to avenge your brother for suffering a fate worse than death. Which was worse?
Oh, that's so hard.
I know. You're welcome. But it still comes down to this argument of what Lyra and Will were discussing, of which was worse. Will thinks that his was worse. So what does
You've
Matthew
just
choose?
Depressed the bleep out of me, Holly. Way to go. Thanks so much. I was having as you could tell, I was having such a good day already. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to say that wishing and attempting to act upon death of any human being is worse than picking on a special needs person. Regardless, they are both horrible. They're absolutely horrible. But to me, murder, not in self-defense, is inexcusable over everything else.
Okay. So I frame the question as avenging death, revenge, but it's avenging an act of self-defense because they took Tullio's knife, okay? Tullio had that knife. He was using it to protect himself from the specters, and they took it, and therefore that led to Tullio's having to suffer a fate worse than death. Awful. Awful.
That's a good point. My only argument for that is you did put this in the framework of a kid, and you also argued earlier in the episode that when you're a kid, it's okay to say it's you. I hope you die. So I'm not sure how much weight I can put into what you're saying about anything anymore, Holly. I just don't know. We'll have to put it on the poll and make sure that people vote for me. Murder is worse. Murder is always worse. No matter what the explanation, murder is worse. Okay. Maybe not. I don't know. It's up to you to decide. The poll is pinned to our profile page on Twitter. So at the Dust Podcast, look at the pinned tweet on our profile. There'll probably be a whole thread of these polls waiting for you to vote on. My turn. Holly, if you have problems with heights, what's going to be worse for you? Hanging out on a cliff or flying in an open air balloon?
Ooh, this is tough because I do not have a problem with heights really at all. So both are dangerous. I guess flying in an open air balloon, I would say would be worse because if you're on a cliff, you can always just leave the cliff, you got up to the cliff, you walk to the edge of the cliff, you can walk away from the edge of the cliff and still be on solid ground. If you're in a balloon, you're stuck in the balloon.
Yeah, there's no escaping it. That's true.
There's no escaping the balloon. So I'm going to say that the balloon's worse.
My argument is wind. You want wind for a balloon. You do not want wind for a cliff.
Oh God, but you could still step off. You can still step.
Yeah, gusts of wind happen quickly, and you can't see them coming when you're on a cliff or in a balloon. They just happen.
That could be dangerous for both balloons and cliffs because the wind could gust the balloon into the side of a cliff, and you'd still be screwed. So I'm still gonna stay. I'm gonna go with the balloon is worse.
Okay, well, I gave my reasons for the cliff. Some of the reasons. I am terrified of heights, all heights. It's trouble just to get me into a roller coaster. Not because of all the fun that you have once it starts, but just in that slow ride getting to the top of the first hill. I am an absolute
part. You mean the best part of the roller coaster? That's the best part.
That is the worst. Absolutely.
So good.
It lasts forever. It lasts thrilling. Longer than the ride itself, 9 out of 10 times.
It lasts 5 seconds.
And it takes you a good half an hour to get up to the top of that first hill.
Most roller coasters are under 2 minutes.
The ride's over in like 15 seconds. I can handle that part. It's the going up, seeing the ground slowly go away from you, and you're like, "Come back, ground! Come back, ground!"
Nope.
But I'm terrified of heights, so either of these is not an option for me unless I'm forced to. And it's going to be hard to force me to.
We will not be going to Disney together, Matthew, because I will be all over Space Mountain and all of the the crazier roller coasters
Hey,
that I could go
I will
on.
do it. I will do it. I'm just saying you're not going to want to be with me when we do it. That's all. And, put me in a car about 3 cars behind you, so you don't have to deal with my anxiousness as we climb those hills with those rickety sounding chains that may hold on to your car or not. It's awful. It's terrible. I can't stand it. Ugh. Okay, one more, just as a tiebreaker, as if you're not going to win both of those polls, but. What's worse, poisoning a person or leading them on as you do? That's just for you to decide. We're not going to argue that one because I know that Holly's already tried to kill me a couple of times just by talking about roller coasters, and she freely admits it to perfect strangers. My musical analysis this time around, I know last week I talked about the double C.
Double C?
Yeah, the Coulter connivings. But this week we're going to be talking about the double B.
Double B?
Yeah, the Balf's brass use. Hey, if you're not into the music, well, I don't exactly understand why you're listening to this podcast, but if you're not, skip ahead about 11 minutes and 20 seconds. And if you're on YouTube, we'll be back in just a second. Well, after putting 2 segments in between my promise for the book section, we're finally going to get to it right at the end of this podcast. But don't forget, please send us your thoughts about the finale episode, about this episode, about any episode of His Dark Materials that you want to. Feel free to contact us at The Dust Podcast on Twitter. You can send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com. Don't put the in the Gmail address. It won't work. You'll get something else. And you can call 314-269-0421 if you want to leave voicemails. Don't forget that our buddies just finished a series of The Mandalorian. That's at the Double P Podcast Network. Look for Parsec Passion wherever you get your media from. And you can find their podcast also on their YouTube. You can search for Double P Media on YouTube, or you can go to youtube.com/user/what, Holly?
FITTENTRIM.
Excellent. Make sure to check out our podcast there too. Our first looks are always available, usually on Wednesdays on the Double P YouTube. If you have any questions about any of the other great franchises they cover, feel free to contact them at the word double, the letters PHQ on Twitter and Insta, and you can go to facebook.com/the word double, the letters PHQ, and become part of their community there as well. If you want to become part of my personal community, just follow me at Musical Concepts on Twitter. And Holly, I know that you have a horde of followers that like to talk badly about me, so how did they contact you to do that?
You can find me on Twitter at HuntPants. That's my Twitter handle.
It's weird.
Yep.
Book reader section coming up after the end music. TV only, people. If you don't want to be spoiled, we will see you for the finale on
The Dust Podcast.
Tweet the podcast at The Dust Podcast. Send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com or call 314-269-0421. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Hey, you're still here. That means you're a book reader, right? No? You're a TV person who wants to be spoiled? I'm actually okay with either of those, if you're a book reader or a TV person who wants to be spoiled. But if you're a TV person who doesn't want to be spoiled, why are you here? I don't get it. You confuse me more than Lyra confuses Will. We're going to go to book spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Holly, we have other stuff that I promised Dragonfell UK in last week's Second Look podcast that I would address in this week's book section so that he could talk to you about these darn SC letters that he keeps bringing up. Because I haven't read that, so I felt like it would only do justice in order for you to be here to talk about these. So at Dragonfell UK, our good friend Jonathan, we love your feedback. Thank you so much for sending it. Says, Getting back on Pan and Lyra, I had a different reaction to you on Lyra calling Pan back in episode 4. That felt to me more like a nod to their relationship than them not wanting to be apart at that point. Pan's snarky response shows his growing independence. And Pullman discussed the depression element of Secret Commonwealth in the Blackwell's talk last week, which has helped reinforce my feelings on some of what we have seen this series, especially as Jane Tranter confirmed in the Entertainment Weekly article they had early in sight of Secret Commonwealth whilst prepping. So, evidently Secret Commonwealth is creeping into Series 2 here because Jane says so, and Jane can say whatever she wants. She's the head of the company, so that's fine with me.
Yep, I think those elements come up a lot more with Mrs. Coulter, though, than with Lyra and Pan specifically in at least these last 2 or 3 episodes. And I can't remember, I already forgot what I said back in episode 4 about this scene, so I apologize.
Well, you disagreed with, I thought that Lyra was not wanting Pan to be far away from her because of what had happened with Boreal in episode 3, and you disagreed with me, and it seems that Jonathan agrees with you here.
Oh, okay, cool. Then good, great.
Once again, I am wrong, which is not a surprise to anybody. So do you want to take any further revenge on me, Holly? Do you want to put me on a roller coaster that never ends? Is that for being wrong again?
We're going on roller coasters, Matthew. First chance we get.
Funny, pandemic, can't make that. Gotta do my hair.
First chance we get.
Can't make that. Got a gig. Looking for a job. Gotta make breakfast. Anything I can to keep from getting on a roller coaster with you.
In all seriousness, I am dying to go to Galaxy's Edge. Dying. I want to go so bad.
There aren't any roller coasters there, are there?
There are rides. But
not roller coasters.
No, not roller coasters, but I think still pretty.
I think I can
rides.
handle the Millennium Falcon simulation. I'm not sure I could handle a Star Wars roller coaster.
You could do Star Tours. What? It's nice and slow, and just nice trip through the ball. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm eating it here. I'm really eating it, folks. I'm gonna... Holly, who I promised as far as further stuff from her, we talked about in a prior episode covering The Scholar as to whether we believe Mrs. Coulter had any real witch tyings or not. For the record, it doesn't. I don't recall you or either of us saying that we thought that Mrs. Coulter had any witch lineage actually ourselves, but it did feel like the show was trying to imply that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Holly says Mrs. Coulter as a witch or not. In Grumman's papers at the end of the 10th anniversary edition of The Subtle Knife, it does say that Azrael told him Lyra's mother was not a witch. And if you look at that, it talks about how Azrael showed Grumman, from the Grumman papers, a picture of Lyra, and also said that the mother of the child was not a witch. Also that Azrael was very proud of his daughter in the little section that Holly was kind enough to highlight for us from her book. That's a really, really pretty book. Do you have that book, Holly?
I do not have that book. If you remember,
maybe we
Matthew,
can convince Holly to donate that for one of our prizes to get.
Can I win the prize?
I'm kidding, Holly. We love that book. That looks beautiful. I wish I had one of those.
I know. I do. I want to win the prize. If it gets to be a prize, I want to win it. It is really beautiful.
All right, but thank you. So regardless of what the show may or may be not trying to imply, Holly, how do you feel about that? Are they just trying to do this as a red herring deliberately? Or did we just read too much into it? Did I fall victim to the Tumblr generation and just fall victim to bait?
No, I don't think so necessarily. I think they're just trying to
imply similarities, but not necessarily
exactly.
direct connections.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just like, hey, maybe hint at that there's other ways of separation that can occur, not just witches. But that's all they've given us so far. But I think when it's especially with last week in that scene, or well, not last week, but in the scene where they're in the magisterium and Dr. Lancelius is there, and they specifically pan to Mrs. Coulter when he's talking about the witches separating. I think that's more about just reminding us that, like, oh, she can do this to an extent too. And maybe not necessarily that she's a witch, but just like, hey, this is a not witch person that can also do this. And and foreshadowing that there could be humans that do this.
See, that's interesting because I did use that as circumstantial evidence. What I noted about that scene in particular, back in episode 2, The Cave, was the fact that as Dr. Lancelius was describing it, Ruth Wilson is such a great actress. You can see her breathing change. She physically makes her breathing apparent, like it is very distressing to her. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean anything other than a similarity. It's not a direct connection. But I could see how somebody would put those two things together and start to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, it does seem like they maybe want show watchers to think that. And that way they can be surprised later to learn that, oh no, it's possible for humans to do this too.
True. You got to throw them off the scent before you drop the big bomb, I guess. Holly's got more tweets for us here. She says, the show seems to really be hammering the idea that she is a witch, which I hope isn't what they're saying, because like you, I like the implications on self-loathing and mental health more. Making her a witch seems cheap. I also think maybe the abuse she suffered may link to her demon, and that perhaps she went through a ritual like the witches, which would allow her to separate from her pain by separating from her demon. I'm more curious about what point in her life this happened. If it was a specific event, a combination of events, she seems to think all men are dangerous to all women based on her advice to Lyra to stay away from Will. That demons cause all sorts of troublesome thoughts and ideas, etc., which points to a specific kind of abuse or towards actions she regrets as a result of leaning into feelings from her demon. The latter would make sense if she followed her demon's emotions with Azrael and it disgraced and shamed her. Perhaps she separated after the scandal with Azrael, thinking she'd always be able to control herself after that. I don't know. There are too many possibilities.
I like that.
Boy, that's a great idea.
I really like that. Yes, this may be the Holly that you need to have on the podcast, Matthew. No, that's great.
It's fantastic thoughts. Love them.
Yeah, and I like to think that there could be all of these different types of separation that affect kind of their mental health differently. So Mrs. Coulter, I like what she says here, but I also think it could be, it could have happened as some form of abuse, whether, self-inflicted or due to some other kind of abuse she may have had as a child, which, they imply did happen with that, if you want to believe that scene with Lee and her, and I do, because that scene was written so well. It is canon in my head now. I do think she was kind of abused as a child. That's different than what Lyra's going to go through, where she's making a choice, and then therefore, later, her demon's going to run away because of their disagreements, and a lot of that comes back to that choice she makes versus Malcolm Polstead, who did it in order to, like, in a life or death situation. Like, he did it to save Alice. So now I wonder if just all the different consequences of these different types of separations, like I know they affect them all like slightly differently, just looking at the characters. So it's just kind of fun to think about. And I haven't really thought about that until these tweets. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I got to ponder on that for a lot longer before I have more answers. But that was, it gave me a lot to think about. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I've put this off for long enough. A while back when we released our episode 4 review on YouTube, or when Bubba did for us, I promised Double Null Test Channel that we would respond to his comment. And Null Test Channel says, from my memory, didn't Will have to find the spot or a ripple to be able to cut through to other worlds? This makes it seem like he can cut anywhere.
I don't know. I think they address this. Giacomo kind of like, he has to like feel it with the knife, right?
Yeah. Also, I guess what I was seeing and the way the show is showing it, I don't know if we're seeing this from Will's perspective or not, but what I'm getting is and also this ties to the whole string thing that we see in the intro. But Will, when he touches the knife to a certain spot, he physically sees a string. What we don't see is what's going on in his mind as to whether he is actually feeling whether that's the right string or not. Because in the books, it seems like Will kind of sticks the knife in and he finds the right level to cut, and then he cuts. But you're not going to see that in a visual medium anyway, because that's going on in Will's head, which we're privy to in the books, not in a television show, right?
Right. But even considering all that, up until this point, he's still only cutting in between his world and the Chinigaze world anyway. He hasn't, I think it's after he meets John Perry, he's gonna, okay, maybe I'm getting it a little mixed up, but he doesn't even really attempt other worlds until after the subtle knife. He just kind of, he learned enough to feel for one particular world, and he kind of keeps finding that one world because he knows what it feels like until he learns that, oh, there's more. So, and I think they've been pretty consistent with that in the show. He hasn't traveled to any different world yet, and I feel like that happens after John Perry is going to give him a little bit more information on the knife, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And then they feel different to him. So I think the way they have to show it visually is just a way that we can see it because of the medium of television. We can't be in Will's mind that he's trying to cut, feeling it like he's feeling it. We have to visually see it. So I think that probably will stay the same. I think maybe later we'll start seeing maybe we'll see multiple ripples in the air as he's trying to feel for the right one he's looking for or pick one. You know what I'm saying?
What I don't want is every time before he puts a knife to the air is him to say, "Okay, I need to go to Mufala." I don't want it. I don't want that. I would rather just keep it the way it is right now and just accept the fact that in his mind he's going through that process. Whether his dad's told him that or not, it won't make a difference to me one way or the other. I'll be fine with it just the way it is right now.
The only time it'll matter is when they cut through to the world of the dead, because that is a hard window to cut and a hard window to go through. There's resistance.
Good point.
So.
Excellent point. Once again, I am trumped. So that's all of the feedback for the book reader section. Now we get to our thoughts, where I'll make a bigger bleep of myself. They didn't exactly say that Will is completely healed, right? Serafina kind of implied that this is what we can do now.
Yeah, she just says, "Oh, we did all we can." So it's kind of like, whatever. If it's better now, great. If it gets worse, I can't do much more. That's what I took from it.
Kind of like the soap opera. He's got a 50-50 chance, Doctor. The thing is, and I don't know if I brought this up with you before or not, but didn't Will's dad specifically bring blood moss with him?
Yeah. And
then he used that to help heal Will, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We never saw Japari in this show gather blood moss.
Maybe he already had it in his bag when they left.
Well, it's going to seem like an awful lot of a deus ex machina if he just suddenly unpacks his backpack and says, "Oh, by the way, here, this is what you need."
I don't know. It seems pretty spot on for a shaman to have exactly what you need when you need it. That's just me.
Okay. I disagree with you, but that's just me belonging to the magisterium crowd. That is not all about hot shaman and willing to make an excuse for hot shaman. No, that's just me.
Okay.
I'm jealous of hot shaman. Seriously jealous of hot shaman because he will have all of the answers in the bag. Ha ha ha. Okay. What else have you got? Anything else on this?
Oh, okay. I forgot to put it in the notes, but I thought about it earlier and I almost forgot it again until just now. This episode being called Malice, and then I see your notes about the Ozymandias thing down here that you haven't talked about yet. I think I can't remember which book it is. I'm pretty sure it's the first book, but I could be wrong. it's, the monkey doesn't have a name, but I feel like somewhere in the narration, Pullman says he doesn't have a name, but if he would, it would be Malice. So I think that I like that the title of, even though the monkey isn't really super important in this episode at all, he's the one I think of when I hear the title of this episode, because that is kind of like Pullman's implied name for him, or at least the characters in the story. Oh, maybe it's in the Book of Dust and Malcolm says it. I can't remember who says it. Somebody will correct me, but at some point in one of these 5 books, it says that if the monkey didn't have a name, but if he did, it would be Malice. I just like that little nod.
All right. I can see that. I just assumed that it was about Mrs. Coulter's intentions towards Boreal.
Oh, absolutely.
I could be wrong.
It's multi-layered.
Oh, as all Tumblr things are.
Yes.
Here's one that you're just totally going to trump, because, I'm just in that kind of mood today, folks. I apologize for being such a double D.
A double D.
Debbie Downer.
Oh.
But Lyra's mission, she tells Serafina, is Will's father. And that's all fine and well. She doesn't know any better yet, obviously. I got a really weird feeling from Serafina's reaction when she said father. I don't know if it was curiosity that they were trying to portray there, or if it was supposed to strike a chord with her, and possible allusion to we've talked about this before, about whether it'll be a witch or witch, WW. It'll be that kills Jean Perry. Will it be a witch at all? We don't really know how the show's going to handle this. But could it possibly have been the fact that Serafina might have heard a story about a fellow witch who tried to court Jean Perry and was rejected?
You think Serafina's making the connection that Will's father is the same one that was with these witches?
Hey, if anybody can get whispers on the wind, if they can get WWs, it'd be Serafina.
Yeah, that feels like a stretch to me. I'm glad you brought it up, because it does just make me wonder, like, who is going to be the person that kills him? Like, who's it going to be? Because they haven't set up the witch thing. I guess they still could. There's still time in the beginning of the next episode where they have like a little witchy conversation, and maybe it comes up. Maybe not. I don't know. You've been doing a really good job of keeping track of the witches' names in these scenes, and there's no Judah in there, so...
No, there is no Judah in there. There is Lena and Rena.
So,
and Serafina.
I mean, they could just make it one of those people, if one of those witches, if they wanted to keep it that way. I really hope they don't make it Mrs. Coulter. That's the last thing I want to happen.
Oh, to kill Jean Perry?
Yeah.
Nah.
I don't think so either, but I think a lot of people have that fear that is who is going to be that does it, just because we don't really have anybody else, and that would definitely lessen, I don't know, the impact on Will for me for that, because I think he comes away from that knowing, like, oh, my dad scorned a witch, so that means my dad was always faithful to my mom, and that was just, like, super important to him. Maybe not... thinking about it, maybe not super important into like this whole entire story, but important for Will and his character and the kind of man he wants to be, and having looked up to his father, that was nice to know that his dad was always faithful to his mom. I think that should stay. So I don't know, maybe he'll just die, and it'll be because he was living in the wrong world for too long, and that does take away a little bit from Will's how he sees his dad. But at the same time, at least, I don't know, that would be better than Mrs. Coulter doing it, so.
Have you been on Reddit lately? Is that why you come up with this Mrs. Coulter thing?
That I did see people on Reddit say it, but I feel like I saw some other stuff too.
So I got one more thing here.
Ozymandias.
Our friend, who I want to credit here, Double K, who has been very helpful to us in terms of feeling the gauge on the BBC reaction and such, and helping us out a lot in a lot of ways. She managed to do a screen grab of last week's episode where it definitely does confirm. It says something like Ozymandias screeches as there's a shot of Mrs. Coulter. So that the BBC subtitles did use that name. I did go over the HBO version of the episode, and the subtitles are completely different in a lot of ways. And it was only referred to as Golden Monkey or he in the subtitles of the HBO thing. So is this a Starbucks coffee cup thing? Don't know, don't care. It still doesn't change my opinion about it, even if HBO is trying to cover up something that the BBC does not care about. The BBC, I guess in a way, since it was created specifically for their radio production, maybe they own that name.
Maybe so.
In a way that not only that they want to use it, but that they also maybe have to use it now. I'm not sure. But as of just a couple days before the release of the Scholar episode on HBO, Double K sent me that screenshot. And indeed, Ozymandias was named still. So the BBC didn't try to cover it up, for sure.
Huh.
What else have you got?
So the bird scene, I think that just a difference here. And the show, Scion Couture actually leads. It's not so much that John Perry magicked all of these birds towards them or summoned them. I guess in a way he did, but in the book it was his demon. It just says leading a pack of wild birds. So not really specific to what kind of bird, but in the book his demon is the one that leads a flock of birds to take down one of those zeppelins, which is pretty cool. I'm not really upset that they didn't have her do it and that it seemed like a jobbery power that he had. But I do regret not having more Scion Couture lines in this episode. So, other than that, are you ready to cry next week?
I don't cry. I cry all the time. I'm not lying. I cried when Angelica was so upset a couple weeks ago. So, yeah. Or last week. Was it last week?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I have not cried this season. There's been some parts that have been very emotional, and I've definitely felt the emotional impact, and that scene being one of them. Lee and Mrs. Coulter being another one. Mrs. Coulter, not that it's a crying scene, but the Mrs. Coulter and Mary Malone scene was also very powerful for me. A lot of really powerful scenes, but I haven't cried yet, and I think back in season 1, the only time I cried was in the last episode when Roger died. So I hope I cry, which is a weird thing to say.
What a weird thing.
I know, but some people will understand. You know, I want to feel the emotions enough where they have to come pouring out of me. That's how much I want to feel. I want to be hit hard with this next episode. Just punched in the gut.
Holly saves her crying for finales.
Not always. Just depends on the show.
Okay.
But yeah, I will cry when Lyra has to leave Pan on the shores in the world of the dead. I will cry very hard. Very, very hard. That is when I will cry the most. Spoiler alert for the next season.
Yeah, in the hopes that we get it in timely fashion within the next 3 years anyway. Anything else?
What's going to come out first? His Dark Materials Season 3 or The Winds of Winter?
That's an easy bet to make.
Okay.
Winds of Winter is never coming out.
Oh, don't say that.
It makes me sad too. That'll make me cry.
Yeah, me too.
You can't even get good odds from Vegas whether, the next Game of Thrones show will be completed before Winds of Winter is.
Like the whole series or the first
series.
First season?
Whether that whole series will have its run, and we're still waiting on Winds of Winter.
Man.
Yeah. If you want to find me and berate me for my sourpuss attitude for this particular episode, feel free to. You can find me at Musical Concepts, or you can, of course, tweet the podcast Twitter at The Dust Podcast. Holly, if people want to tell you how many different ways to trick me into getting on a roller coaster, how do they do so?
They can find me on Twitter at HuntPants. It's weird. You can talk to me about BioShock or Mandalorian, Star Wars, favorite roller coaster rides, whatever.
Yeah, those conversations. Do not at me in any of those conversations, please. We'll see you next time on
The Dust.